It is primary chapter from book, School of Out-of-Body Travel, a practical guidebook, by Michael Raduba. The term phase include out-of-body experience, astral projection and lucid dreaming. Chapter 2 Indirect Techniques. The concept of indirect techniques. Genuine practice of phase entrance is best begun with the easiest, most accessible methods. Indirect techniques, which are conscious actions performed upon awakening from sleep. Some critics incorrectly assume that indirect techniques are not ideal, and prefer to start with direct techniques. However, doing so provides no guarantee for success and results in a large amount of wasted time and effort. Starting practice with indirect techniques guarantees entrance into the phase. A specific universal technique that suits every practitioner is a myth, since individuals differ widely in personality, psychology, and learning speed. However, there is a relatively easy universal algorithm, or procedure, that accounts for the characteristics of each person and allows for the most rational, effective way to attain the initial phase entrances. This algorithm encompasses cyclic practicing of the indirect techniques covered in this chapter. Without exception, these techniques, despite their varying degrees of difficulty, are suitable for every practitioner who wishes to experience the phase. Results can be expected immediately following the first few attempts. However, to achieve measurable results, an average of 5 daily, conscious attempts must be made. Making more than 5 attempts over the course of a day is fine, too. There is nothing difficult to understand about performing the techniques, since they are clearly laid out and based on real internal processes. Remarkably, due to correctly practiced indirect techniques, more than half of students at the live school attain phase entrance after only 2 days. Interesting fact. Many experienced practitioners prefer to bypass the effort associated with direct techniques and hone their skills through the sole use of indirect techniques. In order to ensure that one's efforts are most fruitful and productive, we are going to individually examine each step and principle behind the actions in great detail. Let us start from a description of the techniques themselves, which will actually apply practically just as much to direct techniques as to indirect techniques, as they only differ in character and length of application. There are plenty of techniques, so after practicing all of the indirect techniques presented in this chapter, a practitioner should be able to choose 3 or 4 of the most straightforward, individually effective methods. Separation techniques will be examined later. They are completely different from usual techniques, which only bring one into the phase, but do not necessarily themselves lead to separation from the body. It is often also necessary to know how to stop perceiving one's physical body after employing these techniques. It is necessary to understand when to employ these techniques, and the importance of waking from sleep without opening the eyes or moving the body. Attempting to enter the phase immediately upon awakening must be learned and practiced to mastery, since it constitutes the main barrier to successful practice. After examining the peripheral information surrounding indirect techniques, the cycles of indirect techniques will be examined, including what there are, how they work, and how they are best used. Successful phase entrance is the direct result of performing these cycles. However, there are exceptions, and it is not completely necessary to proceed with these cycles if one's own mind somehow hints what exactly one should start from, which we will also examine separately. Primary indirect techniques. Notabene. The techniques described below are the simple components of indirect technique cycles. Implementing each technique as description is far from effective. Of the list given below, it behooves the individual practitioner to choose the most comprehensible and interesting techniques, then actively study and apply the instructions for use. Observing images. Testing individual effectiveness. Immediately after waking from sleep, remain motionless, eyes closed. Observe the blank space behind the eyes for 3 to 5 seconds and try to locate recognizable pictures, images, or symbols. If nothing appears during this exercise, the technique should be substituted. If something appears, continue to passively observe the images. Meanwhile, the images will become increasingly realistic, literally enveloping the practitioner. Do not aggressively examine the details of the image, or it will vanish or change. The image should be experienced as a panorama, taking everything in. Observe the images as long as the quality and realism increases. Doing so yields two possible results. The practitioner becomes part of the surroundings, and has achieved the face, or the image becomes borderline or absolutely realistic, and separation from the physical body is possible. Training. To train the use of this technique, lie down in the dark, eyes closed, and observe the blackness for several minutes, identifying any specific images that may arise from simple spots or floaters, and then gradually transition to whole pictures, scenes, or scenarios. With practice, this technique is very easy and straightforward. A common mistake made during practice of this technique is when the practitioner aggressively attempts to conjure images versus passively observing what is naturally presented. Phantom wiggling, movement. Testing individual effectiveness. Immediately after waking from sleep, remain motionless, eyes closed. Try to wiggle a part of the body for 3 to 5 seconds, but without using any muscles. If nothing moves during the attempt, try a different technique. If a sensation of wiggling occurs, even in the slightest, continue to employ the technique, striving to increase the range of movement as much as possible. This technique should be performed very aggressively, not passively. As soon as the range of movement nears or exceeds 4 inches, which may take just several seconds, the following situations may arise. One momentarily finds oneself somehow in the face, or the wiggled part of the body begins to move freely. The occurrence of movement during practice of this technique allows the practitioner to transition to a separation technique and attempt to leave the body. While practicing phantom wiggling, strong vibrations may occur, amid which separation may be attempted. Sounds also often arise, allowing the opportunity to practice listening in, which can lead to phase entrance. The phantom wiggling technique is not meant to produce an imagined movement by a phantom body. The point of the technique is to attempt the movement of a physical body part without using muscular action. That is, the focus should rest upon an internal intention of movement without physical action. When the sensation occurs, it differs little from its real counterpart and is often accompanied by heaviness and resistance. Generally, there is very little range of movement at first, but with concentrated effort the range of movement noticeably increases. It does not matter which part of the body is used to exercise phantom movement. It may be the whole body or just one finger. Neither is the speed of the movement important. Increased range of perceived movement is the aim of the technique. Training. To train the technique of phantom wiggling, relax a hand for several minutes while lying down, eyes closed. Then, aggressively envision the following hand movements, without moving any muscles, for 2 to 3 minutes each. Rotating, up-down, left-right, extending the fingers and drawing the fingers together, clenching and unclenching a fist. No sensations will occur at first. Gradually, the sensation of muscular action will become so apparent that the perceived movement will be indistinguishable from real movement. During the first training attempts, practitioners are often tempted to open their eyes to see if actual movement is occurring. That's how real the sensation feels. Listening in. Testing individual effectiveness. Immediately after waking from sleep, remain motionless, eyes closed. Try to listen to noise in your head. Do this for 3 to 5 seconds without moving and without opening the eyes. If nothing happens during this period of time, switch to another technique. If any sounds like buzzing, humming, raving, hissing, whistling, tinkling, or melodies occur, listen attentively. With results, the sound will increase in volume. Listen in as long as there is some dynamism in the volume of the sound. When the sound stops, or the noise becomes loud enough, a separation technique may be attempted. Sometimes, the noise itself throws one into the face while listening. At a certain stage, sounds may be extremely loud and have even been described as comparable to the roar of a jet engine. The action of listening in consists of actively and attentively exploring a sound, the whole of its tonality and range, and how it reacts to the listener. There is an optional technique known as forced listening in, where it is simply necessary to strongly want to hear noise, and meanwhile make intuitive internal efforts, which, as a rule,